Joshi, welcome back to My Security TV and welcome to Malaysia for Cybersecurity Asia.
Thank you so much, Chris. Such a pleasure to see you.
Once again, my friend. And well done on your recent move. Following on your seven rules of cyber.
That is correct.
Talk us through, you're now into book 2 and you had a lovely session this morning talking about cybersecurity awareness. Maybe your current motivations and your current publications as well.
Yeah. So look, I recently started my own cybersecurity company called 7 Rules Cyber.
Got it.
And the name comes from the 2 books. And the first book I remember, Chris, I launched on your podcast essentially as a big one. So the latest book is called 7 Rules to Become Exceptional at Cybersecurity. The first book was around how do we apply lessons from psychology, neuroscience, public health campaigns to cybersecurity awareness. Because as we know, cybersecurity is fundamentally a human problem, with over 90% of incidents occurring because of human errors and mistakes. At the same time, the executive culture is such a key part of cybersecurity success. And now at APRA CPS 234 and other regulations, you are starting to see a lot of prominence where the board responsibilities, accountabilities are becoming formalized. So you need that culture throughout the organization. It's not just a training and awareness issue. So, which is where the second book is more focused on how do you bridge that divide between business and cybersecurity. How do you communicate in a way that a business understands, that they can trace back to the products, services, the real impacts, the dollar and cents that matter, and their obligations to their stakeholders, their customers. How does cybersecurity play a role in all of that? How do we become better professionals in communicating that story? So it's about strategy, building the right strategy, but also executing it well. So it's not just about a great page which has all these great buzzwords, but how are you going to implement and execute the strategy? The role of culture is so big at any given time in an organization. So that's an aspect of the book. The other thing it focuses on is the use of measurements as a key mechanism by which you can, one, sell your story, but also demonstrate meaningful progress.
Well, I think that's something we might, just on this particular interview, we did cover strategy quite a bit. But on the metrics, that implementation of a strategy and culture takes time to change and move. It's like a big ship to maneuver. What are some of the metrics, both short-term and long-term, that organisations should be thinking about?
Yeah. So I put metrics in essentially, if you think about it, 3 categories, right? The first category tends to be around operational and strategic metrics. So when I say strategic, these are the metrics that you want to talk to your executives and boards about. So these metrics typically tend to be your maturity scores as you think about your overall organization cyber program maturity. It's an aggregation of all the lower lying data. It's also about your risk profile and where you are within your risk appetite or outside of it, and I think that's the story. But there's some metrics you can actually tie back from a strategic level also to your operations, which is percentage of your critical internet-facing applications that have critical patches applied in a timely manner. Now, if you can sell that story of what is a critical system, well, it's our billing platform where we actually collect in revenue. And if you can share the story of, because of poor patch management, you're putting that platform at risk, clear knowledge of what the dollars and cents are, by that being offline, I think that serves as a powerful motivator. It's a good metric. There are also metrics around, percentage of the critical internet-facing systems that have MFA turned on, multi-factor authentication. That's an important metric if you educate your executives. From an operational level, though, you need to change tact because now you're trying to manage your tools, operationalize your services, and manage their health. So you would think of metrics such as, the alerts generated by your endpoint detection tools, which actually were actionable. You can think about the efficacy of your email filtering solutions based on the amount of time your analysts have to field false positives or track down indicators of compromise. So I think those are operational level details. The other category is more around what I call think about compliance metrics and coverage metrics. So far too often what we report are traditionally compliance metrics. What I mean by that is we have a standard that dictates how often patching should happen. So we report if you're meeting that standard, overdue, exceeded timelines. But there's also coverage metrics. As we mature our programs, we'll bring in more platforms and tools like privileged access management. If you are a large enterprise, it takes you 2 to 3 years before you can meaningfully roll out a PAM solution because it has a lot of user friction. You change the way administrators access applications. So for those ones, you want to have a coverage one. So 30% covered of critical assets, 50% covered. I think that paints a good story. Yeah. So I think you can think about it from compliance and coverage. And then lastly, I'll say for metrics, leading and lagging indicators. Have a combination of both. So when I say leading, you can predict that with the incidents occurring in your industry vertical. Well, that's a leading indicator of heightened threat activity. There is also the amount of time it takes you to patch your critical systems. That's a leading indicator because that's telling a story. A lagging indicator would be the incidents you suffered in the past, of the reports that you're seeing. I think it's a good combination to report both and not just the lagging ones. Give them a forward-looking view of where the threats are evolving.
Look, I want to keep the audience wanting more. We'll have the links to your books in the show notes, but I think just in a tight little interview like that, you've given away a lot of good advice. Chirag, thank you very much for coming to Kuala Lumpur on this particular Cybersecurity Asia 2023, and enjoy the rest of your time in Malaysia.
It's always a pleasure. This is a great conference.
Wonderful. Thanks, Chirag.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.